This podcast is brought to you by Penji. Penji is a creative subscription service that gives you access to pre-vetted, agency-trained creatives from all over the world. From graphic design to illustrations to social media management and web development, it's all included for one monthly price. It's time to say goodbye to the hassle of searching for top-notch creative talent. With Penji, you get quality and consistency delivered right to your inbox every day. Carefully crafted for you by humans. So meet your new creative team today. Head over to penji.co for more and enter the coupon code located within the podcast show notes.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Fully Managed Podcast. Thank you, Jose, for joining me today. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure, Shannon.
Thank you. So today, Jose, we're going to start with a game.
Mhm.
This game is called Brand Therapy. So I'm going to describe a fictional brand and a fictional crisis, and
Right.
you are going to diagnose the issue like a doctor would, maybe, and offer kind of a strategic plan for what they should do.
Sounds good.
That sound good?
I do every day. So yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So it's just like this is a crisis. So, you
Yes.
know, maybe these people are coming to you with more level heads. This one's maybe too much. Okay. So, the scenario is an eco-friendly water brand accidentally went viral for luxury bottles, and these don't necessarily use the same materials that their normal bottles use, and sales are up because people are really excited about this trend, but their loyal audience that is more into green kind of products are not happy.
Good.
What do you do?
I think I will position it that if the brand values are there and all the messaging and they're trying the best to do the best for the planet and whatnot, I think they can spin it or they can take it to a way to say, we do use some products or the bottles a little bit more luxurious because it allows us to enter a market where usually we won't enter and allow us to span ourselves, and we can take some of those profits and create programs like One for the Planet, or they can take that extra money from that product that doesn't damage as much as other products in the industry. I will have to know the bottle is definitely bottles made out of new plastic, or maybe there's some recycling. So I will try to make the brand know that part of their value is taking that extra revenue from expanding their audience and create a more luxury item and bring more profits, can help them take those profits and do better good by supporting other programs or initiatives or charities and things like that.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to kind of spin it, is the idea that, yeah, maybe not every single product will be perfectly green. It's really hard to please everyone in that and also keep, expenses low, but that getting money from a certain initiative, even if it's not perfectly aligned with everyone's views, can still support other initiatives because
There's
of
no thing of 100% green or 100% like
it's impossible. Things,
all those
energy.
things, eventually you can be as perfect as you can. I think that's the best way to put it.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that even if it is a mistake, like you thought something was more efficient than it was, to be able to spin it like this money is still being used towards a cause in which you believe in is something that would be very effective.
Mm-hmm. And they can also revise their supply chains if there's something they didn't know, right? That maybe their supplier kind of skew around the lines of greenwashing things. They can also correct and just put a statement saying, hey, we're not aware of this. This is not what was sold to us, and we'll revise and change course if needed.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's brands make mistakes like that all the time, where like maybe proper research wasn't done or it was but not enough. And so just being able to pivot and adjust to, not every opinion that your audience has, but if it's a generalized opinion of the masses in which support you, then of course you need to address it in some way.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Yeah, it all depends how many people are truly complaining too, and and not ignore them because they're maybe a minority, but address them directly and transparently.
Yeah, exactly. It's something that it makes your audience feel cared about, and it keeps that brand loyalty that everyone is kind of looking for, I think.
Right.
So Have you ever seen any kind of similar scenario in your practice that is um, maybe something that you find more difficult than navigating that situation? Like something that, what if someone did something almost detrimental to their brand like image? How do you navigate some kind of controversy like that?
Yeah, something very similar happened to a product of a client. I won't disclose too much details, but kind of like an eco product, very similar.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they're running the issue that the transportation was an issue because they're made in one part of the world,
Mm.
right? So I think they got into trouble by not researching how the product will be distributed. And when it was developed around the world, they started having a lot of negative things like, well, you say all about this and all that, but you're not carbon offsetting, and you're shipping overnight, and you're doing all these kind of evil things that a lot of green consumers are against, right? Like shipping overnight or free shipping and all those, or just producing in one part of the world and then distributing it all over the world. It's obviously not very good for the planet. So it was something very similar to a question you asked me, actually. Uh, and I think what they did was really good. Was kind of okay. We'll reevaluate how we do these things, right, and how we can create ship bigger quantities to local warehouses to try to mitigate and buy carbon offsets and things like that. So it was kind of pretty little PR nightmare because they were launching the product and they started getting a lot of influencers, I guess, kind of talk about it. And that's where the issue came out of their control, right? They were not controlling the message. And I think in a brand, when you're launching a brand and you're not ready to prevent your messaging to control things out of your ecosystem, I think that's where they failed really strongly in not kind of preventing or controlling the message a little bit more to what other people may react to.
Yeah, I think that it's definitely there's a lot of situations in which a brand maybe doesn't necessarily consider their audience or like consider every
Mhm.
aspect of a process
Right.
in which would, you know, make their audience think a certain way. And I think especially if you have an audience that is following you for a moral purpose, you
Mm,
really have to think about those kinds of things.
yeah.
And it's not always the case. There are so many people that are loyal to a brand because of just the way it looks and
Yeah.
not necessarily.
Regardless of what they do, they don't care. Yeah. And I think it gets harder and harder nowadays. Launching a brand is not what it used to be. Like when I started working 40
If it's not this
years
kind of
ago, right?
transparency.
So it's kind of like it was kind of like, oh, create a pretty logo, pretty packaging, and usually you were not direct to consumer. Most of the time back then, you will go through a retailer, right? And
Hmm.
you have no control. So I think a lot of brands like this one, where they created the brand, we didn't create the brand, we came in after. When they created the brand, they didn't do that. They didn't do a lot of analysis of who's the audience and what are the true values, and also the values in the company, which is where you start, right? So it's like if you're really into it, really spend a lot of time before you create and put the brand out there to check everything and know your customers, because that's the number one part of a brand is like what the customers think of you as a brand ultimately, right? You
Hmm.
branding controls the messaging, but ultimately they decide what your brand is and how strong it is into their lives.
Yeah, there's both a positive and a negative about the digital world of, yes,
Yes.
there's more transparency. It's really cool to glimpse
Mhm.
into your favorite business or brand and see the ins and outs of it. But for that brand, sometimes they might have to do everything perfectly, which is
Right.
good for accountability
Mhm.
purposes, of course. But at the
Right.
same time, it's much harder because I think a lot of brands used to be able to be faceless in a
Yes.
way,
Mhm.
and now that is not the case.
So
If even if you do launch faceless and there's no name attached to something, people will
oh,
figure
they'll
it out
find it out. Yeah,
somehow.
they'll find it out.
Yep. Especially if you do something that they don't like.
Especially, and they'll exaggerate it too, and then what's truth and what's fact and what's not fact, right? It's kind of also so under control right now. That's kind of like sad. You have to deal with that, but that's the new reality.
Yep, cancel culture. Well,
Like,
so in times of crisis,
mhm.
how what do you recommend for people to kind of navigate that in a way that isn't panicking? Like what is better yet, how do you kind of like define that a crisis is worth responding to rather than letting it kind of cool down and just
Right.
pivot?
I think it should always be acknowledged, and I think step one is like, hey, don't overreact. Don't react immediately, right? Out of anger to like, oh, you're lying, or so just acknowledge, kind of like it's like when you're mad that your airline got canceled, your flight got canceled, right? And you call the airline and you're mad and you're projecting that energy into a poor customer service person that has it's not their fault. They're just doing the job. They're trying to help you, but you're like bashing them and angry in your airline and you suck. And right, I think what people need to do is have more empathy also as a
Yeah.
brand and say, hey, we know you're angry. We acknowledge that we may have messed up. Let us research this and we'll get back to you. I think that's the first step. Acknowledge it, no matter how big or small the audience is, and then do your due diligence, truly research and present the facts. Hey, we did messed up, and this, and this is how we're going to correct it. Or like, hey, you may have a little bit of wrong information. This is kind of how it works,
Mm-hmm.
right? But we still heard you and appreciate your feedback, and these are things we're changing. So I think it's the number step. First step is like, don't overreact. Don't project some energy. Stick to the brand. Talk in the voice of the brand. Acknowledge it and have a response sooner than later. I think that's for us is what works best with our clients. Kind of like, no matter how big the messed up is, and if they even make the news and things like that. I think talk to your PR agency, right? We don't do PR, but we do work with the PR agencies to make sure that the voice and the response is not just a letter, a corporate letter that everybody gets that doesn't work anymore, especially for passionate audiences.
Yeah, of course. Even like what we mentioned earlier that the audience just wants to kind of feel cared about in a way, like personally too, and not just
Mhm.
in a corporate way in which you
Right,
just mentioned. It is they just want to feel like they're being acknowledged,
right,
even if it's not necessarily. You can't make everyone happy, but at
mhm,
least if people feel like their
right,
feedback is contributing to something, or like that at least you're listening,
right.
then you're. I think that brand loyalty comes with that,
Yeah,
is that you really do consider your audience and your clients' feedback as much as possible.
exactly. I think for us, empathy is the number one thing because especially now that we get into this AI, everything's chatbots and auto response that get into a human is almost impossible. I think
Mhm.
empathy is the most important thing because ultimately our clients are people trying to do something for people. No matter how boring, if they do like one of our clients do like reverse osmosis chemicals, right? Like it's the most boring subject, but they understand their brand and they become like the number one worldwide leader because they're present. We're people solving problems for people that operate the plants and need these chemicals to clean the water that supplies municipalities or beverages or food. And so it's a really important thing. So I think always thinking about people doing things for people and the empathy is the bridge. I think you will be fine even when lightning strikes.
Yeah, I agree. I think that is also what keeps a brand alive is your kind of supporters,
Right,
because there is like, if you are one to respond to criticism well, then when something bad does occur, you kind of have like this army of people that understand you to a level, or your brand to a level, that they might not be so quick to react in
right,
response to someone who's maybe critiquing your brand in an unfair way.
right. And also understand that it's always people are not going to be satisfied with your answer.
Yeah.
There's people like that that they just want to project or get something out of their system, right? And they're never going to be satisfied. And that's another thing. You're never going to satisfy everybody. So you just
Yeah.
try to do the best by everybody, and then sometimes you do have to move on a little bit. So yeah,
Yeah, 5 stars is hard to reach in this day and age. There's always something taking it down a notch, but
Mhm.
that's it's okay. It is just how the world works. Everyone has different tastes. Everyone has different opinions on how something works, and some people are not easily satisfied or never satisfied, and that is okay. We can't make everyone happy, but
We can
we
try.
can. Yeah, we can try, and that's all that matters is people seeing that kind of effort. Well, speaking of, okay, so you were talking about the Osmosis brand.
Mhm.
So you kind of described them as leading with empathy. Do you think that in like the noise of the digital world
Mhm.
is that what you think makes a brand stand out the most, and like how do you suggest someone kind of has their volume but also kind of sets their brand's tone?
Right. It's a very interesting trend happening right now that I was just reading last week, and I kind of agree. And it has to do a little bit with influencers. How a lot of brands are relying less in the noise of have all these people talking in volume, volume, volume. And I think the new luxury, especially with AI being able to do everything, right? It can write everything, create the post them, schedule, and can do everything for you. I think that the best brands that are gonna survive and thrive on this is the ones that are gonna slow down and take the time to think things through,
Mm-hmm.
make them legit, and that's gonna come through the noise, right? Even now, when I go through Instagram and start seeing, I can tell right away, oh, that's AI, and I just skip it because uh, it's kind of like shiny object syndrome. Like, oh, that's pretty. Oh, that's pretty. That's right, and
Yep.
it's really impressive what he can do. It's like, oh my god, how do they pull that off? But then after a little bit, there's so much noise and everything's like that. That truly the ones that are going to stand out are the ones that slow down, take the time to craft their message and craft their content using AI as a support or not, in real time, and real things, real people. And I think those are the ones that are going to stand out the most. And that's kind of a little bit of what they do. It's quality over volume is what's succeeding right now.
I definitely agree with that. And with the AI element being kind of added to every space
Mhm.
at this point in time, and I understand that. I mean, it is very useful and effective for more tedious things, but
Mhm.
obviously it's not perfect, as you
Right.
mentioned. And I do believe in the shiny object syndrome of everyone is kind of investing so much time to it, but I
Mhm.
think that so many people and consumers will start to crave
Right.
a level of personalization at some point, and it's kind of like once you get so far one way, people
Mhm.
start pushing the other way, because it's very cool. Everyone is so fascinated
Right.
by AI, but I see this trend of like
Right.
overusing different tools, not
Mhm.
completely understanding them, and them not being perfectly effective for everything. Like kind of implementing AI when it's not really necessary in all spots.
That, and also they don't check. Like,
They
a
don't
lot of
check
times
that it
someone like,
sounds like
look at what I
perfect.
marketing strategy created now in 5 minutes. Copy paste. Here you go. What do you think? And like, well, this doesn't match. This information is incorrect according to your brand and things like. So AI has a place, and for me, it's kind of like should enhance our team's lives. Summarize this, create this, research this, and then read it, and then come to your own conclusions, and then create your own things. And that's kind of how we use it as a tool. So we don't have to spend 8 hours in the computer. If my team can spend four, and then four being in the world learning other things, uh, creating other skills, then that's great. That's a great tool, I think, to takes us away from the over digitalization of our work that I'm on a spreadsheet all day. If I can do that in an hour and then use that other hour to do something better, more human, I think that's where he has a place. But I think just for the sake of just trusting, oh, if I tell ChatGPT, give me a comparative research of this competitor for my client, it does a good job, but a lot of things are not very accurate. And then
Yeah.
we'd ask it compared to our clients, and then some of the facts are wrong. But if but it gives us a starting point. So I think that's what the advantage of it is, giving you a starting point and a more creative outlet, but not just copy paste. I think that's where most people are getting it wrong, and that's why the AI. I think the headlines now is like AI promise is failing us, right? Because people just expect miracles and not bring the human capacity of understanding back to it.
Yeah, exactly. There is a level of fact checking that you have to do.
Yes.
It's also, I think a lot of people utilize it for things like social media posts, or like to seem and like they're posting regularly, or that they're like trying to be more of a voice on LinkedIn or whatever it may be, and they're heavily relying on AI,
Right.
and it doesn't sound like, it's not really creating a brand voice if it's not unique and it's auto generated. And I think that
Right.
that's something that people aren't really recognizing, is that standing out amongst the other voices is personalization, and like
Right.
being very
Being genuine, if you're speaking to a personal brand, I think being genuine, bring your personality to it, will stand out again. Because people will say, "Oh, it has a voice. It's not perfect. It's like, right, it's still very uh, on tone, and it's very relevant and things like that." So, for example, I'm from Mexico. Um, and obviously English is my second language, and my grammatics in Spanish are terrible, so in English they're even worse. So I do use the tool a little bit too when I'm writing things to help me correct my grammar and all that. And it's a great tool that instantly kind of corrected me. So I think it has a lot of good for it. But I think yes, double check your work and you know
yeah, I completely
do what you're
understand
paid
that.
for.
Yeah, it is very helpful with that. I actually talked to someone somewhat recently about how, one of their managers would use it when they're like angry about a situation, because they don't want to like take it out on anyone, but they don't like so they'll send something to ChatGPT that's like angry and be like,
Right.
"Can you make this nicer?" And then it'll
Yeah, yeah.
and I think like, yeah, it's weirdly helpful in like
Mhm.
effectively communicating when
Right.
there is room for miscommunication.
Mhm.
And I think that that is really great, because on top of the tedious tasks that are very annoying for maybe someone to do in their role and
Mhm.
time consuming, it's very helpful for that. But over relying on it, I think, is can be at a
Right.
detriment
It
for
is.
any business.
Totally is. Yeah. So we'll see where it goes.
Yeah, we will see. So, um, moving forward to more of like the leaders of the businesses in which you kind of talk to.
Mhm.
What advice would you give to a founder that maybe focuses on a very specific part of their branding as more valuable than maybe like it as a whole?
Right. I think they need to understand the brand. This is a cliche. It's not your logo. It's not your position message. It's not your website. Like, brand is truly the soul of your business. That's the brand. It's like first focus on mission values. And we have a thing that I don't know if you can blip if I said a bad word.
You can
But
say a bad word, you're good.
we believe your values are shit. We have that's the name, right? Because typically most businesses, 90%, like we care about integrity and truth and hard work, and almost like those posters from the 80s.
Everyone
You're
says
too young for
right,
that. Everybody's throwing like, what does integrity, or what does integrity means to you, what means to me is
Mhm.
100% different, right?
Yeah.
Culturally, what like say I'm from Mexico, integrity in Mexico has a more bigger bandwidth than integrity in the US or in England. It varies, right, what integrity is. So I think companies should focus on how do we operate, what's kind of like our operating system, which is our brand, and that includes our values, and our values should be exemplified. Integrity for Penji, for example, means that every teammate is going to work to the best of their abilities and the best of the truths to collaborate as a team. Oh, okay, that's integrity. I get it now. Right. So
Yeah.
you get these examples almost kind of like a guiding principles more than your values and stuff. Once you have that, I think for a founder, and they create that, people that come to the journey with them, especially startups, it's kind of like they understand what they're getting into. They understand better what the brand is, and then everything else will flow from all this kind of core messaging of your brand, the identity, the colors, the fonts, because everything responds to that kind of voice and tone and soul of your brand. And I think for founders, they miss that. Like, oh, create me like a techie looking logo that kind of looks like our competitors, and now mission vision, and okay, let's go and get money, and right. And what we've seen is for founders we work with that do the hard work of creating this kind of brand essence, if you will, or operating system, whatever you want to call it, they raise more money, they're more successful, they get to profits faster because people understand what they're doing versus, oh, here's a wild idea, we have a cool company and a cool headquarters and everybody's giving us money, but we never reach profitability because they never focus on truly what the soul of this company is. Maybe the founder understands it and it's inside of them because of the founder, right? And investor sees that at the beginning, but at the end of the day it comes through and it falls apart, like with a lot of startups,
Yeah, there needs to be something that I think you're truly aligned to, especially like people that you want to even work within your company kind of need to be aligned in that like one goal. And if you don't align on those values in which you hold in high regard for the brand's voice, then if everyone working on your team doesn't align with that, then you might not be effectively working towards that.
Right. And when you rely on these founders are kind of like superstars and the soul of the company is the founder, it will never transcend, it will never grow. If the founder fades out or brings partners or gets acquired, or I mean the perfect example, don't want to bring politics, if you like Elon Musk or not, that's a perfect example when the founder is the only vision and the only anchor. Like there's probably 100 million people that create a Tesla that work and whatever. But when you attach your brand to like that kind of iconic, just in the founder or one persona, when that persona evolves or changes, it also affects everything. Even though if the company still believes the original founding and stuff, so I think that's the danger a founder needs to look at. Kind of how can I make this not need me, but still fulfill the vision that I have for this idea of this company.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I think that there's so many case studies that can be said about like brands that have that are founder facing, and then some kind of controversy happens around that person and it affects everyone in that business, and it's really sad.
And people lose their jobs, and it's very sad when the company's still good and creates great products, and right. So I think that's my number one advice for founders: figure out how you can be obsolete, but your vision still lives on.
Yeah. Well, have you ever had a time where a brand's identity was misaligned from its culture? And like, how do you bridge that kind of gap if you don't?
That's kind of what kind of clients hire us as most. We don't do any marketing or anything. Everything's word of mouth. So that's great. So I think that's kind of how they come to us. It's kind of like, we're this, but people think we're this, right? Like the brand misalignment of, right? And many times we were like, we don't need to start from scratch. It's like, let's remove the top layers and look at kind of like the core, that kind of soul. It's like, what's your history? Where you come from? Well, that thing's still alive. How can we bring it back through what you already have existing, right? Sometimes it's just changing a headline or an image. Like for us, it's not like redesign everything scratch and let's start from scratch, right? So like sometimes it's kind of like we just do the deep work and the positioning and all that stuff, and that's enough. The brand looks nice, and once the messaging starts aligning with that, then the brand is fine. They didn't have to spend thousands and hundreds of thousands of dollars redoing everything to align it. And sometimes it is the other case, kind of like you kind of need to start from scratch because you deviated from your original idea, and that's why you're not competitive anymore. And when your competitor starts copying what you do, right, you need to not reinvent yourself or keep that brand alive and fresh and relevant to new audiences and new environments. And the world changes so fast now that you always need to be kind of revisiting. But if your foundation's strong, it's a lot easier just to tweak than to every 5 years. Oh, we need to refresh everything because it's no longer relevant, right?
Yeah,
don't,
it is.
Don't create things for the flash, create things for the long term. Right.
Yeah.
People create for the flash, and that's why every 5 years, oh, we need a new website, we need a new marketing director, we need
yeah.
They're not refining and evolving. They just do something flashy and trendy, and then it doesn't work anymore.
Is there ever like you objectively think that an idea or an existing brand identity is a very good one, but it just doesn't have the correct foundation for that. Like how do you kind of have those conversations with people that maybe didn't build the right team to work towards what they've created?
Right. Did they have the right tools? They had the right information. Did they truly understand what the objective was? Right. Sometimes there's a lot of misinformation within the company that through layers and management and all that. That it's not that they did a bad job or they didn't get it. It's kind of they didn't have all the tools, all the information to execute it correctly. So sometimes we can start with that, saying, okay, what is the foundation again? And what did these people have to execute, and can they change them faster versus being like it was wrong. And we have clients like their identity and everything is kind of spot on, but their messaging is not, right? So I think that's what you really put into, but that's kind of easier to correct over time by creating a plan. It's like, okay, what's the number one touch point for our customers, right? And we do a lot of surveys, and when we do this research, reach out to potential customers that they're talking to, or existing customers, long-term customers, new customers, employees. So we ask everybody the same questions, and that kind of helps realign. Oh yeah, I guess our customers think this of us, right? And that kind of helps a little bit to start messaging, and then we decide, oh, do we need to redesign? We need to update the marketing, social, website. Then from that we create a plan and realign it. But again, I don't believe in always throw the baby with the bathwater and start from scratch. There's always something good there that got just buried down a little bit, and we can start there.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think sometimes there's a very good plan, but it's not kind of what you mentioned, that enough information isn't provided for all the teams to be aligned with that plan.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they can be really great at their jobs, but it might not effectively it might not be communicated effectively to the audience because it is confusing. Like, the messaging is confusing,
or internally too, right? It's like kind of like so confusing, or there was a harsh deadline and you just rush everything. It happens all the time, right? So I think slow and steady wins the race for us.
I think that's a really good message to end on, because we're a little over time. But yeah, no, I completely agree with you. I think that it's just people really, I believe, understand when someone puts a lot of care in their branding and like thinks about a lot of elements of it in which their audience resonates with. And a lot of people just like to kind of identify with a brand, and if they can relate to every aspect of it and it's not confusing to them in any way, and they can just align with that, then I think that is the best audience that you can kind of have.
Right, exactly. Loyalty wins.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. I think we just went like full circle, actually, because we started with brand loyalty.
I know, right?
But thank you so much for joining me today. I had an incredible time, and this was a very it was a more specific conversation than I can usually get in about branding. So I had a lot of fun diving into this with you.
Yeah, I did too. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much. And thank you everyone for listening. I hope you're able to learn from this episode like I was, and check out other episodes soon. Thank you so much.
You've been listening to Fully Managed, brought to you by Penji. Check out the show notes to learn more about today's guest, and to learn more about Penji, the human-first creative subscription service, head over to penji.co. And by the way, if you're still listening, it would mean the absolute world to us if you were to share this podcast with a friend, and of course, subscribe.